Yo, what's good? My name's Kang, and today I'm going to be talking about every student's worst nightmare, figuring out OSAP. But before we get started, let me know in the comments, did you graduate this year? If you did, from what school? And while you're down there, hit the like button because it really helps the channel grow. So, it's spring 2021, and for those of you who just graduated from university, congrats. It's been a tough couple of months, especially with the whole entire COVID pandemic going on. And I don't know about you, but during school, I was a top procrastinator. And if you know me, I'm always leaving everything until the very last minute, including this YouTube video. And you know what else I procrastinated on? Learning about OSAP. But you know what? It makes sense that I loafed it on it. OSAP's kind of like university's last assignment, which just happens to be a multi-$1,000 loan. So to better understand OSAP and how it works, I think it makes the most sense to go through a concrete example. So we'll go through my own loan. If you want to see yours, you can log in through the NSLAC website and you can view it there. So as you can see on screen, I owe the government just over $26,500, which is broken up into two parts, a federal loan and a provincial loan. And in my case, the federal loan is $21,000 something, and then my provincial loan is just shy of $5,000. Both the federal and the provincial portion of the loan have its own interest rate. Let's first take a look at the provincial portion. For the province of Ontario, this rate is calculated by taking the prime rate and adding 1%. And for those of you who don't know, the prime rate is just an interest rate that's set by the Bank of Canada. Right now, the prime rate is 2.45%, so for a provincial loan, it works out to be 3.45%. But if we look at the federal portion of the loan, we can see that it's 0%. This is because the Canadian government recently reduced the federal interest rate to 0% to help new grads during the pandemic, and they will keep the federal interest rate at 0% until March 31st, 2023. Okay, so for 6 months after you graduate, you're in what's called a grace period, which means you don't have to start paying back any of the loans. However, during the grace period, the provincial portion of the loan will still accumulate interest daily. So if you look over here, it gives me an estimate of the interest that I will have to pay during the grace period. So for me, I'll have to pay 46 cents a day in interest, and at the end of 6 months, the total interest that would have accumulated is an estimated $84. And then finally, at the bottom of the screen, we can see the estimated payment is $274 a month. They calculate this number by assuming that you will take 9.5 years or 114 months to pay off your student loan, which to me is kind of a long time. And if you're ever confused about anything on this website, you can always reach out to them through the chat feature. It's really helpful, and I've used it a bunch of times already. Okay, hopefully you have a better understanding of how the basics of OSAP works. Now we're going to go through some more practical questions. Question: I have a large lump sum of cash right now. Should I just throw it at my loan? This is a good question. Putting lump sum payments towards your loan will always be a good idea because it will decrease the overall amount of interest that you have to pay on that loan over time. During the grace period or during school, any lump sum payments that you make will go directly towards the principal. However, any lump sum payments that you make after that 6-month grace period will go towards first the interest and then the principal. Question: can I choose which portion of the loan to pay first? No, unfortunately you can't. The way that it works is, every single time you make a payment, the money will be split between the federal and the provincial portion based on their percentages, and will be updated every single time you make a new payment. So, for example, if you had a federal loan of $3,000 and a provincial loan of $1,000, 25% of the payment would go towards the provincial portion and 75% of the payment will go towards the federal portion. And these percentages will update each time when you make a new payment. Question: what will the federal interest rate be when it comes back? The interest rate for the federal portion of the loan will be 0% until March 31st, 2023. But after that, no one knows what it's going to be. In the past, it's been the prime rate plus 2.5%, so maybe it'll be that. Or maybe someone will come into office and they completely abolish all student loan debt, which would be kind of cool, I guess. That one's a joke, but not really. But again, no one really knows. I even tried contacting NSLAC and they're not sure yet either. Question: how does paying OSAP affect my taxes? Paying interest on a student loan will qualify you for a tax credit, which will reduce your effective tax rate for that loan. Right now, that would only really apply for the provincial portion because the federal portion has a 0% interest rate. And honestly, I'm not that sick with the tax stuff, so I'll leave a link in the description about more information. Question: how do I pay off OSAP faster? The fastest way to pay off your loan is to make extra payments whenever you can. I know that the total amount of the loan may seem really daunting and seem unachievable, but making extra payments whenever you can will drastically reduce the amount of time that you have to pay the loan and the amount of interest that you have to pay on the loan. If you don't believe me, try playing around with a debt repayment calculator and you can really see how much the numbers go down. I'll leave one linked in the description. Question: how often does the prime interest rate change, and should I be worried about it? The prime rate is basically an interest rate that's set by the Bank of Canada, and it changes every so often. I'll throw up the history of it right now, and as you can see, it changes every couple months or every year. But to answer if you should be worried about it, I don't really think so. There's nothing that you can really do about it. Like the prime rate's going to change when it changes, and you can't really predict when it will change, and you can't predict if it's going to be up or down from where it currently is. So all that you can really do is just make the extra payments and try to pay down your loan faster to avoid paying more interest. Question: what if I can't pay back my loan? If you can't afford to meet the minimum payments right now, don't worry, you have options. Your best bet is to visit the Repayment Assistance Plan website and then give them a call. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Question: what if I plan to move abroad, say for example to the United States? Do I still have to pay back my OSAP? I actually had the exact same question, so I reached out to the NSLSC. They said they will not be accepting any payments from a foreign bank account, only a Canadian one. And they had a whole bunch of different options that you could do instead of having like a Canadian bank account, like wire transfers or sending checks. But honestly, the easiest way seems to have your own bank account in Canada and just transfer the money from the States to your Canadian bank account and then getting it withdrawn from there. Question: I have a little extra money at the end of the month. Should I invest or should I use that money to pay off my loan? Honestly, this is a super tough question because everyone's situation is different and there's so many factors that come into play. Like what works for me will probably not work for you, and so on and so on and so on. But in general, the argument for investing versus paying off your loan is that your investment return will be higher than the interest rate of your loan, and then you would essentially be making a profit on the difference between the two. This is where it gets tricky though. We can assume all we want that our investments are going to do super well and they're going to return higher than our interest rate, but there's no guarantee. There's no way to know what's going to happen in the stock market 10 years, 10 days, or even 10 seconds from now. So there's no way to guarantee that your investment return will be higher than your interest rate, let alone even be positive. But you know what is a guaranteed return? Paying off any existing debt that you currently have. You'd be hard pressed to find any stock or ETF that guarantees you any sort of return. But with all that being said, that brings us to right now. Currently, the interest rate for the federal portion of the loan is 0%. And for most people, that's the bigger part. And from here, I can really think of two ways that you can look at it. Option A: this is a great opportunity for me to pay the minimum, not pay any interest on the federal portion of the loan, and use that money to invest into my TFSA or my RRSP. If and when the federal interest rate comes back, I can circle back and I can reevaluate my decision and make some changes if I need to. Or you can look at it like this. Option B: I don't like having the idea of debt weighing over my head. If I aggressively pay off my loan now, a lot of the money will go essentially towards my principal. Later down the line, if and when those interest rates comes back, I'll have a shorter amount of time to pay for the loan, and I'll have less interest to pay on the loan. This way, I can clear up my debt as fast as possible and then use that extra cash flow once I'm finished paying off my debt to invest for the future. And that's why it's so tough, because both these options are actually really good. That's why it really boils down to your specific circumstance and your risk tolerance. In the past, the S&P 500 has returned on average 8%, so mathematically it makes sense to go with option A. However, if you adjust those returns for your risk tolerance and also consider the mental aspect of having debt, option B also makes a lot of sense as well. I really think that the question of paying down your debt versus investing comes down to your risk tolerance and honestly your mental health. I think a lot of the investment advice that you hear right now only considers the numbers, charts, and rates of returns and completely ignores the mental aspect of investing, which is huge. For me personally, I don't want to have the mental burden of having any debt. I can go back and forth in my head saying, hey man, is this really the best option? Am I really maximizing my long-term gains? But like I said, there's more to personal finance than numbers and charts and years and rates of returns. It's like I just finished such a big portion of my life. I'm 22 years old and I've been in school for basically all my life. And now that I'm finally graduated, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. And I'm super ready and super excited to start the next portion of my life. But this next portion of my life is being held down by a $26,000 loan that's spread over 114 months. And to me, the mental relief of, getting rid of that loan and getting rid of that 26K is worth way, way more than maybe making a few extra percent a year, which could be a lot, but for me, it's worth it. That's why personally, I'm going to be trying my best to aggressively pay down my loan. And once that loan's paid off, I'm going to use that extra cash flow to start investing. However, just as a disclaimer, I already have money invested in the stock market and I already have a job lined up. So if you put me in a different circumstance, I would probably answer the question completely differently. That's why it's important to take essentially everything I say or anything anyone else says with a grain of salt and do your own research and figure out what is going to be best for your own personal finances. Because at the end of the day, they're your personal finances, not mine or not someone else's. But other than that, thanks for watching the video if you made it this far. I know this one was kind of long, and hopefully I cleared up some of the questions you had about OSAP. But if you liked the video, please consider liking, subscribing. I plan to make a new video every 2 weeks, so hit the bell notification so you don't miss out. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or hit me up on Instagram. But other than that, thanks for watching again. I'll see you guys next time. Later.